Welcome to Life Stories, where we bring you inspiring tales of resilience, love, and personal growth. Today, we follow the journey of Olivia Harper, a brilliant researcher and rising executive who finds herself caught between love and ambition. On the eve of her wedding, she faces a harsh truth, one that challenges her identity, her values, and the future she thought she wanted. But instead of surrendering, she chooses to stand tall and redefine her destiny. Stay with us as we unravel this powerful story of courage and change. Subscribe to our channel to begin today's story with Life Stories. The rhythmic sound of heels tapping against the polished marble floor echoed through the long, white corridor of Harper Pharmaceuticals. Olivia Brooks walked with purpose, her focus entirely on the final report she held in her hands. Today was a crucial day for her team, after years of relentless effort. Their groundbreaking cancer treatment project was finally nearing its final stage. A familiar weight rested against her collarbone, the pearl necklace her mother had given her years ago. It was more than just jewelry. It was a symbol of strength, of resilience, a reminder of where she came from and the values that shaped her. She wore it on days like this, when the pressure was at its highest, and she needed to stand unwavering. As she approached the laboratory, a series of greetings met her. "Good morning, Director Brooks," young researchers called out, their faces filled with admiration and excitement. Olivia responded with a warm, reassuring smile, her eyes scanning the dimly lit laboratory. Despite the quiet hum of machines and the soft chatter of researchers, there was an electric energy in the air, the kind that comes when a team stands on the brink of something extraordinary. She stepped toward a workstation where a young researcher, Daniel Grant, was eagerly holding up a tablet. "Director Brooks, the culture data from last night," his voice carried barely contained excitement. "The results exceeded our expectations. You need to see this." Olivia took the tablet, her sharp eyes scanning the data. Graphs, figures, patterns, all confirming what they had hoped for. Her lips curved into a small smile of satisfaction. "Excellent," she murmured. "At this rate, we should be ready for clinical trials next month." Daniel beamed. "The side effects are lower than anticipated, too. It's all thanks to your guidance." She shook her head. "No, it's thanks to all of you. This is a collective victory." She had spent 2 years leading this division, and in that time, she had built a team that trusted her, not just as their director, but as someone who believed in their work, who fought for it just as fiercely as they did. The long nights, the setbacks, the relentless push forward, it had all led to this moment. The pharmaceutical industry would soon witness a breakthrough, one that had the potential to save thousands of lives. Just then, her phone vibrated in her pocket. A glance at the screen made her heart tighten. The call was from the wedding planner. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Olivia Brooks speaking. I'm sorry to disturb you," the planner said in a hushed tone. "But we have a last-minute issue regarding tomorrow's final meeting. Mrs. Sterling's mother has made a special request." A dull ache settled in Olivia's chest. Of course, it was about Vivian Sterling again. She barely heard the details as the planner spoke, her mind drifting back to the first time she had met Nathan Sterling. It had been 2 months ago, during a real estate inspection for Harper Pharmaceuticals' expansion project. Nathan had walked into the room with a kind of effortless confidence. His suit impeccable, his words carefully chosen. He had been charming, intelligent, and, most importantly, genuinely interested in her work. They had spent hours talking about research, business, and life, and Olivia had found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't expected. The connection had been swift, intense, so much so that when he proposed just 2 months later, she had said yes. She wanted to believe in love, in the idea that two people could meet at the right time and build something meaningful together. But as the reality of their differences settled in, so did the doubts. The worst of it had been her meeting with Vivian Sterling. The private dining room at an upscale restaurant had been filled with the quiet murmur of wealth, polished silverware, soft classical music, the scent of expensive perfume in the air. Olivia had arrived hopeful, willing to make a good impression. But from the moment she sat across from Vivian, she had felt the weight of judgment pressing down on her. Vivian, dressed in an elegant Chanel suit, had regarded her with barely concealed disdain. "Oh, so you're a researcher," she had said, as though Olivia's career was a hobby rather than a calling. "It's fine for women to work, I suppose. But in our family, wives are expected to tend to the home." For the first time in years, Olivia had felt small. Vivian's words had cut deep. But what hurt more was Nathan's reaction. He had simply sat there, offering an awkward smile, making no attempt to challenge his mother's outdated beliefs. That was when Olivia had realized what she was truly up against. Vivian's contempt hadn't shaken her confidence. She had faced opposition before and risen above it. But Nathan's silence, that was what stayed with her. It wasn't just about love, it was about whether he truly saw her, truly respected her, or if he simply saw her as someone to fit into the mold his family expected. "Ms. Brooks? Are you still there?" The planner's voice brought her back to the present. Olivia took a deep breath. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. "I'll handle it." As she ended the call, she looked down at her pearl necklace, feeling the familiar weight against her skin. She had fought for everything in her life, her education, her career, her place in the world. And now, she was beginning to realize she might have to fight for something even more important, herself. The soft glow of her office lamp flickered against the glass walls as Olivia sat at her desk, fingers lightly tapping the polished surface. The lab had grown quiet. Most of the researchers gone for the night. Only the faint hum of machines remained, a reminder of the tireless work happening around her. But her mind was elsewhere. Her wedding was only weeks away. Yet instead of feeling excitement, she felt a lingering unease. She had ignored it at first, chalking it up to nerves. But after her encounter with Vivian, the feeling had become impossible to push aside. She leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes briefly. She wanted to believe that love could overcome differences. She wanted to believe that Nathan would stand beside her when it mattered. But deep down, a part of her feared she was stepping into a life where she would always be expected to compromise, where her achievements would be treated as secondary to the role of a perfect wife. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Nathan. "Dinner at my parents' tomorrow night. Mom insists. Hope you're not too busy." Not asks, insists. Olivia sighed. The next evening, she found herself once again stepping into the grand Sterling estate. The house, a towering colonial masterpiece, exuded old money elegance. But tonight, it felt suffocating. She had barely crossed the threshold when Vivian's voice reached her ears. "Olivia, darling," Vivian drawled, her red lips curving into a polite but insincere smile. "You look lovely, though I do hope you'll reconsider your hairstyle for the wedding. Simple elegance is best, don't you think?" Olivia forced a smile. "I'll keep that in mind." As they moved into the dining room, the conversation was pleasant enough at first, talk of business, society events, and mutual acquaintances. But it didn't take long before Vivian turned the discussion to what really mattered to her. "I assume you'll be stepping back from work once you and Nathan are married?" she asked, swirling her wine glass with studied indifference. Olivia stiffened. "Why would I?" Vivian laughed lightly, though there was nothing warm about it. "Oh, dear, I assumed that was understood. A wife's role is to support her husband's ambitions, not be consumed by her own." Nathan, seated beside Olivia, shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Olivia placed her fork down carefully. "With all due respect, Vivian, my career isn't a hobby. I lead one of the most important research projects in oncology today. I have no intention of giving that up." Vivian's smile faltered. "Surely you understand that Nathan's position in society requires..." Olivia cut her off. "Requires what?" "A wife who stands silently by his side. Saying nothing, doing nothing?" She exhaled, shaking her head. "I'm sorry, but I can't be that woman." Silence stretched across the table. Nathan finally spoke, his voice quiet. "Mom, maybe we should." But Vivian held up a hand, stopping him. Her gaze was sharp, assessing. "Well," she said smoothly, lifting her glass, "we shall see." And Olivia knew, in that moment, that this was just the beginning of a battle she hadn't signed up for. The morning of the wedding arrived with a golden autumn glow spilling through Olivia's bedroom window. Boston's skyline stretched before her, crisp and clear, the Charles River reflecting the changing leaves like a painting. She sat at her vanity, absently running her fingers over the pearl necklace at her throat. Behind her, her mother, Evelyn Harper, stepped into the room. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Olivia met her mother's gaze in the mirror. Evelyn had always been a woman of quiet strength, the kind who understood the weight of decisions before they were made. And she understood, without Olivia needing to say a word, that something was different today. Her father, Daniel Harper, stood just outside the doorway, his expression unreadable but his presence grounding. In the 6 months since he had taken over as CEO of Harper Pharmaceuticals, he had watched his daughter rise to her own power. Now, as he looked at her, there was both pride and something else, anticipation. "Yes," Olivia finally said, smoothing out the fabric of her deep blue gown. "Everything's perfect." Her father nodded, all according to plan. By the time she arrived at the Four Seasons, the grand ballroom was already buzzing with the hum of Boston's elite. The scent of champagne and fresh roses filled the air, while the live string quartet played a soft, elegant melody. Everything was as it should be, a meticulously curated spectacle of wealth and status. At the center of it all, Vivian Sterling sat at the head table, draped in the latest Dior gown, a diamond necklace gleaming against her skin. She basked in the attention of her guests, the women of Boston's high society whispering their admiration. "My son is finally going to have a proper family," she declared to the women gathered around her. "Of course, his fiancée works at some research facility, but she'll come to understand what's truly important in time." A ripple of knowing laughter passed through the group. The MC's voice broke through the hum of conversation. "Now, let's welcome the mother of the groom, Mrs. Sterling, for a few words." Vivian rose with a radiant smile. Champagne flute in hand, she turned to the guests, her voice rich with practiced warmth. "The Sterling family has been a pillar of this city for generations," she began, pausing just long enough for the weight of those words to settle. "And today, we celebrate not only my son's marriage but the continuation of a legacy." She lifted her glass slightly and turned toward Olivia. "And, of course, we finally have a wonderful maid in our house. Please feel free to use her services." The room erupted in laughter. Even Nathan chuckled softly beside her. But Olivia didn't laugh. She simply picked up her own glass, her expression composed, her movements deliberate. She took a slow sip, letting the moment stretch out, watching the crowd as realization began to dawn on them. A shift in the air, a murmur among the guests. And then, from the back of the room, Daniel Harper rose. It was time. 1 year had passed since that fateful wedding day, and Olivia Harper stood in the executive boardroom of Harper Pharmaceuticals, overlooking the autumn skyline of Boston. The city stretched out before her, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. So much had changed. The scandal at the wedding had sent shockwaves through high society, forcing conversations about discrimination, privilege, and the roles women were expected to play. Sterling Properties had crumbled under the weight of its own outdated values. And Vivian Sterling, once the queen of Boston's elite, had vanished from public view. Nathan, stripped of his inherited power, was now starting over in a small regional branch of what was left of his family's company. Olivia, however, had only risen higher. She had become a symbol of change, an executive leader reshaping the pharmaceutical industry, an advocate for women in business, and a force to be reckoned with. Under her leadership, Harper Pharmaceuticals had launched groundbreaking cancer treatments, transforming lives and setting new industry standards. A soft knock at her office door pulled her from her thoughts. Her mother, Evelyn, stepped inside with a warm smile. "Don't forget our lunch," Evelyn reminded her. "Of course not," Olivia replied, grabbing her coat. As she stepped out onto the bustling streets of Boston, she felt lighter, freer than she had in years. This wasn't just about her triumph. It was about paving the way for others. Because real change doesn't happen overnight. It takes courage, persistence, and the unwavering belief that a better future is always worth fighting for. Subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring tales of resilience, love, and transformation.